What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Cinema Recap. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the comedy spy film, Agent Cody Banks. Spoilers ahead. It's present-day Seattle, and we open to a perfectly normal, everyday suburb. And just to double down on this normality,
Morning.
berated by his little brother, Alex. And his younger brother is apparently more of a ladies' man than Cody is.
We're eating?
Honestly, could this guy be any more basic?
Sweetie, Mommy will be right back.
Now across town, a neglectful mother leaves her child in the car. A few seconds pass by and somehow, this toddler has managed to disengage the brakes and send the car flying down the hill. The mother notices and runs after it, but there's only so much she can do. Enter Cody Banks, skating down the road, seeing the car zoom past and immediately snaps into action. He skates faster down that hill, gaining both speed and distance on the car. And when he manages to get close enough, he grabs a hold as if to pull himself up and into the car. But rather, he just swings around to the driver's side only to find it locked, leaving Cody hanging off the side of the car like a moving target. Well, eventually, he manages to climb up the car and towards the sunroof. And his car's headed for danger, right for that train crossing the tracks. It's gonna be a close one, but Cody's able to fall through the sunroof and pull the handbrake just in time. And then, like the hero he is, Cody ghosts the site before anyone can see what he did. It'd make a cool story for lunch out on the playground, but we get the sense Cody's keeping this one to himself. And now we're in a James Bond-esque meeting room with who we think to be the bad guys. There's the leader, Dr. Brinkman, his henchman Francois, and scientist genius Dr. Connors. Now Connors has been working on some state-of-the-art nanotechnology. He's designed these nanobots to eat through literally any substance that he programs, like locusts in a wheat field. But where Connors envisions the technology to be used to clean up oil tanker spills, Dr. Brinkman and his cronies have something far more evil in mind. Not that they're going to share that with us. Little does Brinkman realize the CIA are onto him. Sort of. They've been watching him for some time, but as the CIA director explains, they still don't know what he's planning. They do know he's working with Dr. Connors though, and this can only mean nanobots. The problem, however, is that Dr. Connors is extremely reclusive, and the only way to get to him is through his teenage daughter, Natalie. Cue Agent Banks. The CIA director goes on to explain, through video, that the CIA have developed a program in which they train teenagers to be secret agents under the guise of sending them to summer camp. The video runs through why these agents are so effective, and when this is questioned, as it should be, it's dismissed as an idiotic concern that isn't even worth thinking on, obviously. Well, the plan's a simple one.
One of our most impressive agents.
Cody Banks is said to be a smooth operator, smart and resourceful, and a self-confessed whiz with the ladies. His job will be to infiltrate the private school Natalie goes to, befriend her, and possibly fall in love, if there's some time, and then use her to get to her father. What could go wrong? Well, first off, Cody's not the ladies' man he pretends to be, nor is he very cool or even charming. We see him fall on his face as he tries to hit on a girl in class and then watch on as the rest of his classmates mock and deride him in the locker room. Few coded words are spoken between the two and Cody realizes who she is and what she wants.
My country needs me.
But she tells him coolly that he'll be only going as far as downtown Seattle. So Cody's first stop is the CIA, and on the way Veronica and Cody have a little back and forth, where she makes sure to tell Cody they aren't partners, that she is his handler. Then they arrive at the CIA, where he's nearly thrown out by security for being a kid.
How did you get in here?
Fair enough. But then his training starts, although this is just a rundown of the information we already know about nanobots and Natalie. But he gets given some cool gadgets like a fancy watch and a skateboard that we just know he'll use again later. Now before he can start his mission, he'll need to convince his parents to let him transfer to Natalie's school. Veronica pretends to be dean of admissions and meets with the parents, explaining that Cody's so darn smart he's gotten himself a scholarship. Well, with no real choice, they agree and the mission is a go. There's one major problem though, and it becomes pretty clear the moment that Cody arrives at his new school. He's a teenage boy who, like most teenage boys, has trouble speaking to girls. Now with that out of the way, Cody attempts to talk to Natalie, but it goes, well, to say terrible is an understatement. So later that day, Cody ends up in driving class with, you guessed it, Natalie. They get a small conversation going in which Natalie explains the driving instructor doesn't pass anyone.
He doesn't pass anybody.
A moment later, we see Natalie attempt to drive and we understand why. She's awful. Well, Cody's up next, and feeling himself for a change, he decides to show off. He disengages the instructor's brakes and then takes off. But Natalie now feels sick from all the stunts.
Actually, I don't feel so good.
Can't this kid do anything right? That afternoon, Cody swings past the CIA for a little hand-to-hand combat training. He and Veronica get into it.
This mission depends on you.
Through the art of Kung Fu, he manages to convince Natalie to lend him some agents and do his house chores for him, to which she agrees. An entire team gets sent to Cody's house. They're mowing the lawn. They change the hamster cage. They clean the house until it's spotless. Even when Cody's parents return home early, they manage to sneak out the back, leaving the house immaculate, and Cody's parents are beyond impressed.
Thanks, Mom. Yeah.
Unfortunately, now that Cody's chores are done, Veronica reminds him that he has to keep up his end of the bargain. He has to call Natalie, which he does. As expected, it goes horrible. And what's worse, the CIA was listening on the call, and now they realize they've made a grave error. Who would have guessed that a teenage boy might have struggled talking to a cute girl? Go figure. And now we get on a fun little montage where the CIA attempts to use their technology and resources to give Cody a crash course in how to talk to women. Their information is all conflicting and confusing, and a little outdated, and we get the sense that when they're done, Cody's more confused than ever. So the next day at school, Cody's walking through the grounds where he spots Natalie on a ladder trying to hang a banner. And about to fall, his agent training kicks in and he rushes towards her, manages to catch her as she tumbles from the top of the ladder.
Are you okay?
This then leads him to the school nurse, which gives them some alone time and a chance to talk. Finally, Cody seems to be making some progress, and Natalie's even about to invite him to her birthday party on the weekend, only for Veronica to interrupt them. She's posing as the nurse and makes sure Natalie invites Cody to her birthday party. All the while, Cody couldn't be more upset with her for it. Natalie's rich, and so are her friends, which means her party is a rich person's party. As such, the CIA lends Cody a swanky sports car to rock up in and a cool suit. He arrives at that party looking damn fresh, necklace that he puts on her himself. They flirt a little, and finally, Cody's looking more comfortable around her. But the real mission is the secret lab at Natalie's house, the one her father's supposed to be using. Cody does some scouting and spots both the entrance to the lab and even Dr. Brinkman and Francois arriving and going down into it. Veronica tells him to wait and come back later, but Cody's cocky and thinks he can now go in undetected. And he does too, finding a way in through the ventilation system. Crawling through those vents until he finds himself right above the lab, and below him, both doctors are seen to be arguing about the nanobots. Now the nanobots are kept frozen in little ice blocks, and Dr. Brinkman demands a demonstration of their capability. He pulls out a random metal contraption and asks if the bots will eat it, while Connors melts the ice block and unleashes them onto that metal, which is consumed by that bots as if it were candy and they were a horde of chubby teenagers. Cody's of course watching all this from above and transmitting it to Veronica and her team. Now as Dr. Connors watches those nanobots eat the hardware, he asks what the heck it is. It's the guidance system to Russian missiles. Dr. Brinkman then explains that with these nanobots, he'll have the power to neutralize America's entire strategic missile arsenal. They leave the lab and Cody banks axe. Using some nifty gadgets, he manages to lower himself into the lab and steal one of the nanobot ice blocks. However, it sets off an alarm, and he's almost caught red-handed, but it's Cody Banks, and he manages to get out just in time. Unfortunately, the ice block he stole melted, and the nanobots ate through his shoes. Now back at the party, Cody's about to leave, only for the bullies to get in his way. Yeah, they're real pricks, and are about to throw him into the pool, but then Cody's agent training kicks in and, well, the bullies never stood a chance. He beats them up effortlessly, which has the party watching on in awe. Even Natalie brags about knowing Cody. But as cool as that fight might have been, it has untold consequences. First, Cody's been exposed, and as a result, he can't continue his mission. Second, Francois and Brinkman saw the fight and recognized those moves to be of CIA-level techniques. So now they know that they're being watched. Cody's world is falling, and despite his protests, well, he's a kid, so nobody listens anyway. Now, Dr. Connors is having second thoughts about his bots and refuses to play ball. But Brinkman predictably threatens Natalie, and Dr. Connors yields. Now, when Cody gets home later that day, he's surprised to find Natalie at his house. His parents can't believe it either, nor can his little brother. To avoid their stares, Cody takes Natalie to a cafe where they begin to bond. He's struggling with identity crisis, as guilt over all the lies start to get to him.
You don't have to say anything.
But before he can do anything about it, Francois shows up and a chase begins. Well, not really a chase. Some henchmen manage to grab Natalie and drag her off as Cody's fighting back a few others. He might only be a kid, but he has pans, and he slaps it across the faces of the henchmen looking like he might actually win this thing, until Francois gets the drop on him and knocks him out.
Wake up.
Now when Cody wakes up, he's with Veronica and his team, and they remind him in no uncertain terms that he's off the case. But Cody Banks isn't going to stand for that. When he gets home, he finds his brother playing with some of his gadgets, and one of them turns out to be a trace on Natalie, the necklace he gave her. Cody realizes that it's on him to save her, so he manages to break into the CIA pretty damn easily. And the guard on duty is the one chastised earlier for trying to kick him out. He then steals a bunch of equipment and hires a plane to drop him off in the middle of the Cascade Mountains. Once on top of that mountain, Cody uses a special snowboard equipped with jets to shoot himself down the mountainside and towards the bad guy's secret base. As predicted, the snowboard's a little hard to control, and a few wrong moves later sees him upside down in a tree. And what's worse, Veronica shows up to save him. That's embarrassing. And surprisingly, she's not there to stop him, but help him. Finally, they're working as a team. Now the base has an Austin Powers type of setup, and Veronica and Cody sneak through undetected. Cody manages to track down Natalie, who's locked away in a cell. And there he explains who he is and what he's doing. Strangely, the secret agent stuff goes over her head. She's more concerned about how she was being used, but Banks sweet talks her. That training is finally paying off, and she forgives him. Now, as they're about to leave the room, a group of henchmen pounce.
We were just leaving.
And manage to get their hands on Natalie and Veronica, although Cody escaped.
Give it up, Brinkman.
Enter Cody Banks. He appears in the rafters and warns Brinkman to let everyone go. When he refuses,
No.
Cody sets off some explosives, causing the base to shake and blow apart, but not anywhere close enough that it might hurt the main cast. Anarchy ensues, and Natalie manages to pull herself free from Brinkman. Even better is that as he's screaming, she grabs that ice cube and shoves it down his throat. Francois tries to use the remote to stop the bots from eating Brinkman alive,
It's not gonna work.
but it's no good, and soon it's lights out for that evil genius. More explosions as the good guys realize it's time to bail. They get about doing just that, with Veronica dragging Natalie and her father towards a chopper. And as this happens, Cody sets up more explosives, determined to destroy that lab once and for all. But it wouldn't be an action movie without a little fisticuffs at the end, and that's exactly what we get. As the lab explodes around him, Veronica and the others escape via helicopter. Then, with seconds until that lab explodes for good, Cody leaps and flies through the air onto the chopper, hanging on as it takes off and escapes those explosions behind it. And the movie ends with the CIA director and indeed all the CIA congratulating Cody on a job well done. The director even asks if there's anything he can do, and Cody can think of only one thing. Natalie has her license, but that doesn't mean she can drive, so she and Cody cruise along the highway, swerving through traffic, before parking by a beach and sharing in on a kiss. It's a small thing, but even though he's a secret agent, he's also a teenager, and finally, he's able to enjoy being just that. Thanks for hanging around till the end. This was our recap of the film Agent Cody Banks, produced by MGM and released back in 2003, directed by Harold Swart. It starred Frankie Muniz, Hilary Duff, and Angie Harmon. You know, not for nothing, this movie was filled with a lot of cool gadgets and vehicles. Do you like any of them? Let us know with the hashtag CinemaRecap in the comments.